clear, but I think we have a real shot.
So with that money in mind, does it mean a $30 an hour employee? Does it mean a $50 an hour employee? Does it mean a $1,000 signing bonus at the end of what's it going to take to get this person back who simply won't come to work?
$30 to $50 an hour. We take government money today and we're set up to be out of business 10 times worse than COVID 9 months from now, right? So that's the crazy realities. All this money in the system, obviously I'm going to take it if it's out there for me. I can't afford not to. But if it pigeonholes us into that dynamic, it's still a short-lived scenario. I've always been a big believer, at least in New York, that allowing us to charge an admin fee, a gratuity, whatever you want to call it, 20% tip to the wait staff plus what evolves into $20 an hour competitive wages, it just doesn't make sense. It's not right. The inequity between the back of house and front doesn't make sense. The math doesn't work. So for me, my biggest hope for the restaurant space is to, in fact, in time, get rid of tipping, take the 20% to the house, and then be able to afford to pay rates like $20, $25, even perhaps $30. But it can't be $30 an hour plus 20% gratuity, because then we're all out of business.
Right.
But the rest of it, the signing bonuses, paying managers more, referral fees, all of that, yes. But the day that you sign up for higher than union level wages, it's a travesty.
You're done. Okay.
Okay. Stephen, you and I had a conversation about another problem that has arisen out of the pandemic. Supply lines. We were talking about the labor supply line, about the food supply line. Can you explain the conundrum that you and Tao ran into, and what you're doing?
Sure. So our supply chain has been almost cut off. I would say 70% of our products are coming from Asia. A lot of our products are getting held in quarantine for 6 to 8 months in California. A lot of the stuff that a lot of the stuff that we would promise, it was almost like, as if a liquor company, you would do a buy and hold. It would say, hey, I promise to buy this many pallets of X, Y, or Z. That's not really the case anymore, because all of those companies held on to these products that we promised to purchase, and then the pandemic happened. So then, of course, we cut a deal saying we can't take the product because we're not going to use it. But at the same time, we made that promise. They held the product, so we did need to, cover some financial responsibility. But I mean, something as small as chicken, it's easier to get whole chickens right now because all of the workers that were working in the plants that were going to fabricate whatever chicken breast, skinless, bone all, they're gone. Same thing, the beef industry right now, beef prices are rising, chicken prices are rising. Lobster is finally coming back down, but up in Maine, a lot of the fishermen didn't even go out this season. The king crab right now is at an all-time high. It's insane. Russia refused to export for a while, and now so a lot of the stuff is coming from Norway, and it's things that we're trying to maintain without there's a lot of variables included, but it's one of those things where it's a daily struggle. After this call, we have another call based just off purchasing. Then you have like Baldor, same thing happened in Baldor. Baldor had 30 drivers walk off about a month ago. They wanted a raise. They were given 30 cents. So that was a big, slap in the face to all the drivers. So you had 30 drivers in Baldor literally walked off the job. So you had reps delivering all your fruits and veggies. And they're one of the biggest, produce companies in New York City, if not the country. But in my personal opinion, I think the biggest thing we need to refocus or look at is same as in Miami, as in New York, we're losing a lot of the line level staff to construction jobs, right? What does that mean? That means the average line level employee is looking at this as a labor job, whether it's cooking or whether it's, roofing, siding, whatever it may be. If you came up to me and said, hey, we can pay you more money if you go work construction, I would laugh and say, that's not my career. I'm not into building houses. I'm not into building buildings. That's not what I do. But these guys, their mentality is labor, right? Whether they're frying, sauteing, cooking, or using a hammer, that's their mentality. So I think instead of saying we're losing everyone in construction, we need to rethink about the way our industry is set up and try to position where, we can say you're going to have a better career. This is something you can do for the rest of your life. This is something where, okay, let's say you're, 70, 80 years old, you can still cook, you can still be a chef, you can still teach, versus being a manual laborer for the rest of your life. So I think that's a big problem right now, because
Okay, but how do you do that?
That's something that hopefully this group is, could be a little think tank. But it's one of those things where I personally, if you said, hey, we got a better construction job, we can pay even double the amount of money, I wouldn't take it, because cooking is something I love and it's a passion of mine. But it's the same thing. I just lost a couple of cooks to construction because they're getting $35 an hour and they're getting Monday through Friday. So, they have nights off, they have weekends off. It's everything that you don't have in our industry. But at the same time, I'm in this for a career. These guys are in it for the money, so I think it's the same.
So it's a mentality thing.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
But how do you then recruit people to start off in those jobs that want to grow in it? Bob, could you unmute Joyce, please?
No, they have to unmute themselves.
Oh, you have to unmute yourself, Joyce.
Good morning, everyone.
You waved at me, Joyce.
Yes. So this all goes back to education and apprenticeship, and really bringing in young people at an early age who have some passion, but then melding it with a reasonable career. Are the days of young people lining up outside the kitchen door of Daniel Boulous kitchens, waiting to go in and work for 2 weeks and not get paid? That time is over. Young people want and understand now that they need a reasonable salary. So all of this has to trickle back down to young people starting in high school. Many people go into the, whatever industry it is, because they find a little bit of passion and they get mentored or someone helps direct them. I know Stephen, and if you're listed as Rebecca Sussman on here, but it's Yvan Lemoine, who are people who are involved with culinary education and helping young people find their passion and then help them get motivated and get the skills in order to perform as a professional. So if you talk to anyone, and I think Stephen and Yvan, I'd like you to address this, since you are a product of a program. For all of you who are unaware, right now I'm a news editor and a writer for Total Food Service. I work with Fred. I'm blessed. But before that, I launched and was communications director for Richard Grousman and Careers Through Culinary Arts program. And, back in 1990, when, there was a huge depression, there was no food industry, we basically, created options for young people who really didn't have, ideas of what they could do in the future.
Okay,
And
thank you
yeah.
on that. Bob, you had a question.
It's from almost a couple of topics ago.
Okay, then wait and then hold it and we'll go
Yeah.
because, okay, Nick, you've sort of grown up in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel about what Joyce just said? I've seen in the restaurants that you've been in, they have people who start washing dishes, and I've seen your family bring people up through the ranks to become waiters and make a career out of it. How do you feel about what you just said?
Well, I think everybody's made good points, and I see it as there's two types of people. There are people that take this as a career, as Stephen said, and it's in their hearts and in their minds, and they want to do it on a daily basis. And then there's people that do it as a job, and it doesn't matter what I'm doing. Doesn't matter whether I'm, again, hammering or cooking. as long as I'm making money from day to day, and they just want the highest dollar amount. To get the people that are going to stick, you do have to get them young. You have to instill a passion for it in them, so that even if they can be making more money somewhere else, this is what they want to do. I have that. I keep saying, I'm out of here. I'm done with this. I'm never working in a restaurant again. I'm going to get a new job. And 6 months later, I'm back doing it. And, you ride that wave up and down. You couldn't get me to go work in construction for more than a couple of months before I go back to a restaurant. So you need to, it's more than just a job and paying. It's instilling that ownership of what they're doing, making them feel like they are a part of what it is that you're doing, that they're not just coming in, punching out, and all right, have a nice day. Make sure you're on time tomorrow.
Okay, Yvan, unmute yourself, please. This is a subject near and dear to you. I know that for a fact. We've discussed these things. How do you bring new people on to help them grow and develop? And how is it done to you?
Oh, good morning, everyone. Very much like Joyce said, I started in the kitchen when I was 15, and I started at La Caravelle, actually. La Caravelle was the first restaurant that I worked at as a 15-year-old kid, not doing great in class and obviously needing some mentorship. And I landed at La Caravelle through CCAP, Careers Through Culinary Arts program, which is a program that Joyce started along with a gentleman named Mr. Grousman that basically helps kids get into culinary arts. It's the connection of bringing people in. A lot of young people in school really don't know what they want to do with their lives, but the kitchen, and not just the kitchen, the restaurant, really provides it's like a hard knocks life, but it's still a very nurturing environment where they bring you in and they teach you. It's a lot of technical skills, but it also incentivizes a 15-year-old kid that would probably get ridiculed at a construction job that isn't old enough to really take an entry-level job at an office. But all of a sudden you find yourself in a kitchen, and if you can bang out a couple of things and pay attention, you can be a cook and you can learn. And that's what happened to me. I got that bug through that program.
And where has this led you?
So through CCAP, I was able to get scholarships. I was able to land in restaurant kitchens. But not only that, it provides really, and I think what the key word here is really culture. Like the culture that you're creating and the culture that you're fostering in your restaurants, in your kitchen, and wherever you are is really what people gravitate to. And I think for the most part, and I think we've all had employees that are, the kitchen's a little different. If you're a laborer and they offer you another $1, everybody leaves anyway. And we're having the same difficulty with people leaving for construction jobs. But I think more than not, you've heard that I would go somewhere else where I could be making more money, but I really like the people that I'm working with. I really believe in what it is that I'm doing. I really like this. Like all the high-end kitchens, they don't pay very well at all. But you have this belief, and you have these values that that make you, I think they make you a better human being. But those are the values that young people really adhere to. And when you're lost and you don't really know what you want to do, that's what you like. That's what that sense of community and education, fostering people. That's what we found to be the most motivational thing to get young kids into the kitchen.
Okay, Denise, you had your hand raised. Unmute.
Okay, so yeah, totally creating the culture is so important because not always is the culture in restaurants a healthy one, and we've all experienced that. But on the point of employment, yeah, it's a shit show out there right now. I took 3 of my busboys that are home from college, and I'm training them this week to become waiters because I can't get a single floor person into my restaurant. And these kids are young and they're going to leave me in August, but I need to get through the next month and a half. So that's what I'm doing. They're loyal, they're great, they're hard workers, and they want to learn. So, that's what we're having to do right now.
Okay, John, Is there a program in your group that fosters growth in the restaurant industry?
We're very active with the Food Education Fund, which primary beneficiary is the Food and Finance High School, which is on the west side towards Hell's Kitchen, which really focuses on giving largely outer borough minority youth more than just a vocational school, but an early education foundation, similar to what Yvan was speaking of earlier. And the reason that we chose to really focus and participate in that, we can't just sit here and bitch about the workforce. Let's put forth an effort from the beginning, whether they come directly to our restaurants or just to be a part of this industry. We have a restaurant in London. I was there last week. The European mentality of this is my craft, this is my career, this is my pride that Nick was referring to. It's there. Why it doesn't exist here? Maybe because there's so much opportunity to be well paid, and God bless America for giving day laborers an opportunity. But it really is on us to create that shift. And as many said, it starts with that education. That's the macro. I think the micro, which everyone has spoken to, is it's easy to say promote from within, but too many times I myself have not followed enough of that advice and went out and found the next fancy resume that worked at the restaurant fancier than ours and brought in that next executive sous or even higher than that, or even corporate chefs because of a resume elsewhere, as opposed to looking at my guys that all ground from the bottom up. And I think I'm largely done with that. I think that when line level employees have a peer get promoted, it's often difficult for that promoted peer to modify the relationship, perhaps more so in the front than in the back, but certainly in the back when that happens. And it's not just here's the next CIA graduate for a line cook that wasn't so fortunate to have gone to the CIA, but rather this is one of someone that came through the same immigration process as him or her that's now a leader. There's examples of it. And that's our absolute shift, is just a commitment to promotion from within, so as to allow those guys and girls underneath to see and live the example. I think that's the most powerful thing that we can do.
Thank you. Bob, did you have your hand raised, or is that an old question?
Yeah, no, there's two questions from the audience that I'm going to combine. And
okay.
Throw in a little something for myself. Given the pressure on staff, hiring staff, the demand, as John is very eloquently talking about, the upward pressure on pricing and making a living, and also the interruptions in the food supply chain or any of the supply chains. How long can restaurants continue the way they were? In other words, when is the trigger for raising prices? When is the trigger for changing your operation, becoming more technologically efficient? In other words, it seems like restaurants can't operate the way they were in the past, given all of these new pressures. Or is it something that's just going to go away and things will return to normal?
Are you talking about with the rising food prices, or are you talking about, do you need to add technology into the equation?
The question really is around two areas. There's two questions combined. One is, given the pressure on staffing and probably the need to pay more or change that model, mm-hmm. and with the rising prices in food and supplies, at what point does the restaurant have to change their prices, change their operation, and to maintain profitability?
Okay, I think I understand what you're saying, and I'm going to change it around a little bit and put it from the view of the restaurant patron, the person that's coming there. When everybody first opened up again, I was really, really, really excited to go out to eat. And there were long waits for my food. The food prices went up. There was less servers. The service time between ordering and delivery to my table expanded. What do we have to do to get the business humming again before the patron starts throwing up their hands and going elsewhere? Stephen.
Hey guys. So in reaction to raising, the first thing we did was say, okay, let's hemorrhage, stop the hemorrhage. Let's stop the guys from leaving to go to the construction job. So the first thing we did was analyze the market competitive rates, gave our internal guys who've been with us for years raises. So one, we're keeping them happy. We are making sure they're not going to go leave to go work a construction job or go to another restaurant, because that's also happened. At the same time, we raised prices immediately. We had to offset the increased labor. We had to offset the increased food prices. But at the same time, the minute when we reopened for indoor or even outdoor dining, we set a number. We said we can do 200 covers tonight, and that's the max. Anything over that, we're going to put more stress on our front of house staff, even our bartenders. Actually, our bartenders were in the weeds more than our kitchen staff. It's because we, as the business model said, we didn't bring back bar backs. We did a pooled house, so the entire house is pooled. But obviously, when you have so many hands in the pot, there's not a lot of honey, right? So how do we trim the fat? We had runners getting ice for the bartenders. We had the bartenders setting up their own bars. We had even managers. You'd see them running back and forth getting ice for the bartenders. And of course, everyone coming out wanted cocktails. Nobody just wanted to order a beer or a glass of wine. People wanted to really experience the enjoyment of going out and, ordering something that they couldn't really make at home. So I think having that conversation right off the bat, saying, okay, guys, tonight is a Thursday night. We used to do 1,500 covers. We can do 200 covers, and we can do 200 covers well. And let's not overextend our reach. So we had the maitre d' close the books, and it was something where we were every single step of the way really calculating how can we keep our service and our standards high, and at the same time, making sure to maintain our cost.
Okay.
So we've raised prices twice already since reopening. Okay,
John, are you shifting because you're uncomfortable, or shifting because you have something to say?
No, I'm always.
You're fidgeting. I'm just the moving. ADD boy like me. Okay.
Horrible.
Okay. Let me expand this out, because this might be a question for Jennifer or Yvan or Nick or Denise. I'm talking more. The fine restaurant has, they have things under control. The small time operator, the person that has one or two places, the person who has been closed or just scratching, every penny out of what they can get every day. All of a sudden, they're going from just takeout to now they're outside, and they're able to handle takeout and outside. But when you open inside, now you're seating more people than you've ever been able to seat before. And you need the money now. I think these are the operations that are going to suffer the most in the long run, because they're overextending their kitchens. Yvan, you're running one operation right now and about to open up a second. What are you doing for the indoor and outdoor with the same size kitchen?
Well, we had an issue we have a restaurant called Casa Nomad that unfortunately is closed right now. Just in Manhattan, but the problem that we were having, we were lucky enough to work with the Department of Transportation and be a part of the open street program, which means we're allowed to close the street down. Excuse me, there's a big truck going through. But we're allowed to literally close the entire street down and put out tables. The city of New York is trying to close down Broadway from Times Square all the way down to 23rd Street, I believe. Or 28th Street, I don't remember. And they're trying to make it into a pedestrian plaza. We're located right on Broadway. So we're able to literally close down Broadway between 29th and 30th and put out tables and chairs. We have a bike lane directly in front of us. So we weren't actually able to build like a permanent outside structure. But we were able to put out, at the highest, I think we had about 100 seats on the site, on the street itself.
Let me ask you a question during this. How far was the furthest seat from your front door?
Half a block.
Half a block.
Half a block.
How do you serve that person and serve somebody else?
It takes you fit, and a lot of the restaurants were having the same issue, because normally it takes you, I don't know, 5 minutes to go from the bar to the table, bringing cocktails. And as we know, there's always like, hey, I'd like one too. So then you go all the way back and you go all the way front, and it literally takes you half an hour just to be able to bring a couple of drinks to a table, which means you have to get more staff, because staff has to be able to run it faster. Otherwise people complain. So you have more staff, you have obviously, like you said, a pull from the kitchen, and we weren't able to necessarily keep up. So we limited our menu, we raised prices a little bit, and we actually made a much smaller menu, but the kitchen was definitely stretched to the max. Like, we weren't necessarily able to keep up, where our kitchen was very small in that space, but we sold a lot of drinks.
Okay.
You know, it's
okay.
Put
Nick,
step counters on your wait staff so you know how many.
yeah.
Yeah, don't pay them by the step. Nick, at Via Forno and Public Pizza, there are you have indoors, outdoors, and on a nice fall night, you have inside full and outside full, and you still have the same kitchen. What do you do?
Run faster. There's nothing you can do, because people won't understand, if there's an open table, that you don't have the ability to seat them. You can't tell them we can't handle any more people, because that makes you look bad, and they're not going to understand that you need that few extra minutes. So you just run faster. Last year in the summer, there was a server at Public Pizza that I think in one night ended up doing almost $4,000 in sales by themselves, because there was just nobody to work. And so they were just running all over the place. Some people get it, some people don't, some people complain. But you do the best you can, and you hope that people are going to understand. They understood a lot more in the beginning. They were just happy to be out. People definitely, like was already said, were looking for things that they couldn't do at home. So it's not just opening a beer or a bottle of wine. It's those complex cocktails, and they're drinking more of them. So it's taking extra time. But you keep your fingers crossed and you keep running. I was serving tables, I was running drinks, running food. At some points I was cooking in the back. You do what you can, you fill in where you can, and you hope everybody shows up when it's time to open the doors at night.
Oh, the glamour of being the front man in a restaurant. What's going on in New Jersey? How are you? Nick just brought something out that I want to bring to light here. When will the smiling public turn back into their own selves, the old selves, and say, I've been waiting 35 minutes for a bowl of pasta. What's going on back there? How are you preparing the people you speak to in New Jersey to handle these situations, to be able to avoid this situation, Jennifer?
Well, this isn't something that just is happening this week. This has been happening for a while. For instance, I was talking to a restaurateur who said that he's been working 7 days a week, 16-hour days since April of this year, like the end of March, April, and it's already June, and he hasn't taken a day off because there's no one to cover. And he's been preaching to his customers that, they can't keep up with the demand. There are people that you're talking about, you having outdoor spaces and all this extra space, which is great. Governor Murphy signed into executive order that until December 2022, you're able to do any of these outdoor spaces, whether it be on the streets or on the sidewalks or in your parking lots. It's extended so as long as your municipality accepts it. And people have to close it down because they don't have the staff to provide it and to keep up with this demand. There are customers that are complaining left and right about not being able to get served fast enough. But it's like I said, it's been being preached since early this year that it's just like, bear with us, your wait time is going to be longer. Some people still even have the 90-minute turnaround time like limit on the tables. They're still kicking people out because they just can't afford to have them stay longer.
But if your food comes out in a half hour, it takes a half hour to get your food out each course. How can you hold people to 90 minutes?
It's weird.
Okay,
There's
that's as good an answer as we're going to get on that. That's
yeah,
just,
it's they can't keep up with it. I mean, it's
right. And we haven't even spoken about takeout, that there is still a segment of the population that even though everybody you see outside is not wearing a mask, they're still restaurant shy. So you have the tremendous amount of takeout. So there's only one person that has mentioned changing their menus. Is anybody else doing any research to change menus to speed up the process?
almost all restaurants that I talk to have changed menus, and not necessarily like drastically, but like significantly cutting down options. You know, they're just providing less because they can't afford to have all of this Cheesecake Factory style menu.
Yeah, I've heard that you should have, the ideal is like 16 to 20 things on your menu because it's all a slammed kitchen can handle. Now that can't happen in John's place nor Stephen's place because people would throw up their hands and go someplace else. What are you two doing in fine dining to be able to handle something like this?
I think that obviously it's an evolving situation every day. And we tried everything modified. We did wacky family meal to go, gold belly, packaged cocktails. We tried all this cute stuff to keep the motor running during the real dark days. Now that volume's back, we've been very, I'll call it unemotional about cutting everything that's not our core. So if I take our main business of Scarpetta, I would say our business is New York City on a Thursday at 9 p.m. That's our core identity. We've stopped takeout. We've stopped breakfast. We've stopped lunch. Cut, and really just get back to core and trying to do it at the best of our ability so as to be able to justify further raising prices and even reducing menus slightly past my comfort zone in consideration of being able to execute the right way. And when we found that we couldn't keep up with the volume, to Stephen's point earlier, we significantly cut back the book. And we've eliminated the hour-and-a-half turn time because we're basically saying, again, this is the core experience that we sell. Now we're going to charge that much more for it, and we're going to do it right so that we're here for tomorrow. It's the mindset.
So you're letting the quality and the reputation guide what you do.
That and cutting out you can't accommodate everybody, right? So you have your core identity. Every restaurant has its own core kind of thing. I get it. There's some people that don't want to go out. They don't have to go out, but we don't have to break our back to try to service X amount of delivery orders that are going to break the kitchen for the guests that are in the restaurant. So you have to choose who you are, who's your customer, and then nail it. Now more so than ever.
Stephen.
Sure. So when we reopened, we did delivery only. So the only items on our menu that was available were the menu items that would travel well, and there's still to this day some menu items that you can order in our restaurant, but you cannot order for delivery. And it's because we don't trust the integrity and we don't want to put our brand or a name on it and then have it show up at your place either soggy or, it didn't pass the bicycle test as we call it. So then we took that. And then honestly, we treated each store differently. We didn't say, okay, guys, we're going to go live with these dishes across the nation at all towns. What I did at my store was I identified my strongest cooks, my strongest sous chefs who were working the line, and we threw more at them. We said, okay, you're working saute. I trust that you can handle 8 dishes. When we have, if we had a weaker, let's say hot apps candidate, we didn't put on all the hot apps back. We said, there's no way this guy's going to be able to handle this. Same thing, especially in our sushi department. Before we had 12 guys in that sushi department. Sushi, if you think cooks and line cooks are hard to find, try finding a sushi chef or a sushi cook right now. It's absolutely impossible. And if you do, the money they're demanding is astronomical, right? So we took that we put our core rolls back on, you know, we put on some nice higher priced ticket items to help with the food cost and the stuff that the prep wasn't too high on, right? But then we had guests saying, okay, where is the tuna Pringle? Where's this? Where, you know, wherever it may be. And they were very, so we as like the salary guys would go in early just to prep all these items out because the guests wanted it. We needed to have it. So it was one of those, we joke all the time. It's, you know, just when you learn how to sit, now the guy's asking you to do a backflip. Now that you learn how to do a backflip, they're like, okay, jump through this hoop. Then they're going to light it on fire. So it's just, it's a never ending struggle, but it's really just identifying who is our strongest in the kitchen. And we added those dishes back accordingly to the strengths of the kitchen versus the normal menu engineering where you're looking at, you know, we have 2 vegetarian options, 2 vegan options. We weren't really looking at that in a sense of we were looking of what can we actually execute perfectly? You know, who is behind the line? Who's working the walk? Who is you know, who's behind the sushi bar? Can we execute all these dishes perfectly? So we went that route and we slowly inch back to now I'm at about 90% back to where we were pre-pandemic as far as menu items. And that last 10% is, they're the stuff that we want to revisit, rework, that we think needs work as a dish anyway. So we've kind of left it off, and now we're in the middle of, you know, trying to repurpose those dishes because we do understand there is a need for those dishes, but the way they were set up was, it was either too much labor, it was going to clog up the pipes, meaning during service, the cook was not going to be able to handle so many dishes. And those are conversations we're having now, but just, you know, to actually answer your question was we identified the strengths in the kitchen and we added dishes back on depending on the stations.
And that moves as time goes by.
Yes. Yeah. And
So
treating
you're
each
constant
order-
monitoring.
Yeah.
Okay, Yvan, what about your place now? Are you opening the second place now? Is that?
So we're open. So we
We're
opened
open.
a place in Forest Hills. It's a restaurant and event hall. But for the time being, we're just doing events.
Okay.
Because of labor, because of everything. But I mean, just to continue on that point, we changed our menu, not here because it's just events, but back at Casa, we actually changed the menu. We made it a little bit smaller. We added more large format shareable items that didn't require, you know, if a table of 5 orders 5 different dishes, you need 2 people to really carry them, or a tray, and maybe it fits. When you have large format, you tend to entertain more people faster. And for us, we found that to be easier. And if somebody wanted a cocktail, for example, we started pushing a lot of larger format cocktails. So bottles, you know, carafes, things like that. And that kind of led into even delivery. Like delivery, we started selling a ton of cocktails to go. And that was, I mean, that helped us tremendously. So large format, reducing our menu really helped us.
Oh, great.
Yvonne, a question came in.
Okay.
And for anybody really, when you change the menu, are you tracking, or do you see an increase in revenue and or patrons? Are you tracking that, or is there any?
We found, we literally, when we looked at the menu, we just ran a report, and we're like, what are the items that people really come here for? And for the most part, you're going to have, you know, a list of items that people continually come from. You know, the top 10, 15 items that we were selling at the time were the ones that we went with. You know, when we would get bored or whatnot, we would bring specials, but we would add one thing or take something away from what it is that was our core, and to kind of dovetail of like John Meadow, like that's what people came for, you know? There's a specific that people missed, a specific item that people missed. We would tell them, you know what, soon, and they were very understanding. But for the most part, I think people gravitate to the same restaurants for the same items all the time.
Or either the same item or the same experience,
Right.
or the same, there is something that identifies every single restaurant. It's the reason why you go back. And one of the reasons we're having this session here about the restaurateurs talking about things is that the pandemic has shaking up, it's like putting a bunch of ping pong balls into a box and shaking them up. Every single time you're able to get your feet on the ground, something else happened. And the idea is, and what I'm getting out of this is, hold true to your identity. You may have to change a little bit to get there, but if you hold true to your identity, the patrons will keep coming back. Now we're down to our last 6 minutes or so. So
the audience,
yeah,
when you guys do change menus, ways you do business and so forth, how are you informing the customers? How are you using it? Are you using it as a marketing tool? We're just doing it and don't tell anybody?
I don't understand that question. When they put a new item on the,
you let people know.
How do you let them know that? Okay, anybody out there?
That's a really tough question, Robert, because I think so much of this goes back to reducing. I think what Yvan said about the big format share plates is quite fascinating. Therein lies an opportunity that you're doing something new and inventive that you can really upsell and focus on. In my case, we've been doing a lot of reduction of offering plus price increase, neither of which you readily sit there and tell the customer. So I think that, if anything, we try to be generous with our repeat guests and our VIPs in terms of offering that extra.
You raised your prices, you reduced your offering, and you made your portion smaller.
All of the above.
Why would you more?
And cut hours and did everything else, and we make people wait 45 minutes for a table. So in spite of all that, you have to make them happy. And I think, I love what Nick said earlier about run harder. I mean, that's the reality. This isn't rocket science. And I think that's so much of what this is about. So run harder, give that extra give, and just make it committed to perfection. And I think that, therefore, you don't have to sit there with an apology that says, we've raised prices, we've reduced the menu, thank you so much for being here. You just have to kill it. We have no choice.
Got it.
Forgive the uneloquent, blunt response, but to me, that's the reality. Unless you're doing something really creative, like what Yvan pointed out earlier.
Yeah, I'm okay. It wasn't my question, so all good.
Robert, we found it just as far as communication. We made a menu that was called our greatest hits, and it was like, welcome back. We miss you. Here are our greatest hits. And people were very understanding. We promoted it in social media. Social media is the big one for us. We promoted the hell out of it, and people were excited to come for those dishes. And people that haven't been out in a while, that's where they were coming for anyway. They weren't coming to try anything like new that we created during quarantine. They wanted to try the same things that they kept on trying before they went into quarantine. And it's going to take a little while for them to get tired of those items. And then by that time, hopefully everything is open. We're all singing Kumbaya, and we can introduce specials and etc.
Larry, can't hear you.
Sometimes my people think that's a blessing. Yvan and John were talking about the same thing with different routes. The two of you are selling home, the experience, the reason why people come back to your restaurants. The people, very few people I know go out for a meal. They go out for an experience. They go to the same places because they give them a feeling. We go to Denise's restaurant because it's like walking into grandma's kitchen. It is comfort food. It's a big hug when you come in from Denise, and everything is wonderful. And we've been doing this for 26, 27 years of following them around where they go. I've been to Tao a few times. It's a wonderful place. Nick's places, we followed there because there was a sense of home. John's, there's an elegance about what they do that, makes the bang at the end palatable. I mean, I wouldn't pay that at Nick's place.
What a compliment, John. I'm like,
no, it's true, right? John just came out and said, we charge more, but we give you something for the money. There are places that charge a lot of money and give you the honor of sitting at their table. There's a reason why people go back to Tao, they go back to John's restaurants, and it isn't the honor of spending money. It's the honor of a feeling when you go in that you're you're treated like something. And the same is when you go into Via Forno or Yvonne's places or any of those places in New Jersey that Jennifer speaks to. People are selling a feeling. You know, you want a pie? You could order a pie. Why would people go to a pizza restaurant to eat except for that feeling? So in the last few minutes, what I want to do is go around the horn and leave the people with a takeaway, something that you think they should know, something you're working towards. I'm going to start with Jennifer.
Like I said before, something that we're just trying to help the industry with, again, coming from an advocacy side and not necessarily restaurateurs, but representing them. We're working on partnering with our Education Foundation, which is another nonprofit that we own, to create an internship and an apprenticeship program to try to reinstill that passion and get them back into the industry, because numbers are dropping off. So that's something that we're working towards.
Okay. Stephen.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we are really trying to work towards, a lot of people ask me about all these new chefs. They're young, they're doing pop-ups. They don't want to come through the trenches like, you know, the rest of the culinary world and, you know, the old school chefs, if you will. But at the same time, we need to really embrace them. We need them. They're the next generation, you know, there's a lot of chefs now are really hating on the next generation of chefs and cooks coming up, but instead of pushing them away, we need to bring them in, embrace them, and really help cultivate what we think they should be, you know? And maybe there is a new mindset, because at the same time, when we were up and coming, we had our own new mindset. So I think, you know, really being able to help cultivate the next crop is something that I'm really interested in.
Okay. Yvonne.
Dovetail of chef. Yeah, I'm a chef, you know, by love and by trade. Have restaurants, and the main reason why I started opening restaurants was because of that. Because you want to do your own thing, you want to create your culture, you want to do what you want to do, that you believe in your heart and your mind that is the right thing to in the hospitality business. So I mean, to quote Whitney Houston, I believe the children of the future. You know, it's spend time, and if there's ways that you can incentivize restaurants to take on apprentices, and maybe as the tax credit or like somehow help them pay, because you're literally taking these kids and training them. It's a waste of time sometimes because they leave and they never come back. So you want to incentivize people. So if there's a way to mentor or restart this apprenticeship program, all about it.
Okay, Nick.
I think it's working towards finding ways to help educate our guests that come, make them understand that we appreciate them coming in and supporting us, because you know, without us, to sound a little conceited, without us, life is a lot more boring. People can go and make money and work all day long, but at the end of the day, when you get out of work, where does everybody go? They go to the restaurant, they go to the bar, you know, more than they go anywhere else. And you're going to experience people that are going to be upset, that are going to be frustrated. There's longer times, the prices went up, there's less of an option on the menu. But at the end of the day, these are things that you can't do at home, and they need us as much as we need them. And we have to find a way to work together to make sure that you know, we all get through it.
Okay, John.
I think we're all saying very similar things in our own words, but you know, passion and dedication. If I realized one thing through this last crazy time, I have no regrets and wouldn't have chosen any other path in my life. And I always say this business chooses you. I think it's time for all of us as dedicated career professionals to embrace that, love that, and disseminate that love, because that's the only way we get through this.
Bob, you want to say something?
Yeah, looking at this from outside the restaurant perspective, the restaurant industry is faced with something that other industries see all the time. That is a little bit different, perhaps. Your pool of your marketplace is not shrinking. After COVID, it will come back. People will go out to eat again. However, you're faced with rising costs from labor and rising costs from supplies. So you either have to raise your prices to accommodate for that lower margin, for the lower margins and lower revenue, or you have to get more people, more quantity to come in, and you certainly have to have a differentiator between your competition because you're competing for for restaurant dollars. So I would suggest that you look at those three things: raise prices, get more people to come, and look for a differentiator.
Okay. Mike Gansel, you have a question?
No, I don't have a question, but I think that I've loved the session and really have. But I think what's important is that you need to get your fans, the people who've come to your restaurants, your core, to really basically get your message out as well. Because if you raise prices, you reduce the menu, and expectations are indeed have to be lowered or changed, you need your customer base to basically tell other friends and people to come to your restaurant. So you really need them to be on your side. And I think that that's really important. Just wanted to say that, but also tell you it's a great session. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Fred, one more
I want to say
last
thank you to everybody for participating. Boy, you talk about a Hall of Fame and an all-star cast. This is it. Thank you, guys. And
All
Gail,
right.
appreciate it.
In closing, everybody, we have scheduled 2 extra. We were supposed to stop at 5 sessions. We now have 7 scheduled, and we're looking for the ideas for 8, 9, and 10. So if anybody out there has any idea, pose a question to me. I'll build a group about it, and we'll talk. Listen, just 2 last things. I want you all to stay positive and test negative. Bye now.
Amen.
All right,
Have a
everybody.
great day, everybody. Thank you.